the only way to start your day.
Okay. In the meantime, let me take you guys through some of the conversations that we'll be having this morning. So, at 7 a.m., we will be having around political turntables, the State House altar. It's a question, State House altar. And to have that discussion will be Eden Canaan, who is MP Eldas, as well as Canon Ambrose Weda, who is an advocate and political analyst. Political turntables. Where are we today in terms of the political class fulfilling their promises to Kenyans, as well as we look at State House being another altar? We see all religious institutions heading to State House. Many out here are having conversations around the same. What are these gentlemen saying? It's a conversation that you should be waiting at exactly 7 a.m. At 8 a.m., we will be having a discussion around the economy, and that is making Kenya's budget work, balancing growth, taxes, and policies. It has been said for a very long time that Kenya, we do not have a problem when it comes to raising taxes. Kenyans actually do pay taxes. Our problem is expenditure. We have a bloated government, we have wastage, and we have corruption. How then do we use that which we collect and ensure that it does deliver to the people of Kenya? We shall be having the discussion with Dr. XN Iraki, who is an economist, and Robert Mine, who is an associate director, EY Tax, together to ensure that we have that conversation. Na tumeelewa what exactly needs to be done. How can the government seal all the loopholes that do exist? At 9 a.m. will be the final conversation on Kenya's biggest conversation. Intern teachers have been on the streets, have been complaining on several things. They want autonomy. They want to be recognized, to have their own way of running things, because they have a problem with head teachers from primary schools being their leaders. So they want autonomy. They equally want to be confirmed on permanent and pensionable terms. The government, on the other hand, says what? Hatuna pesa. What we will do is we will extend that for an extra year. And intern teachers are saying, Apana, our promise was that after the 2 years, you confirm us on permanent and pensionable terms. Where are we today? Where is the problem in terms of just fulfilling the promise? Mark Wambua is Nairobi County Chairperson of Interns, and Nehemiah Kipkorir is the National Chairperson of Interns in Kenya. The fate of intern teachers in the country. Those are the conversations that we'll be having this entire morning on Kenya's biggest conversation. Jesse.
Yeah.
So every week, there's something that we usually do. In one way or the other, we find ourselves in different African countries for the week.
Interesting.
Right? So we came back from Djibouti.
Okay.
When you hear Djibouti, what comes up?
Well, they're not too far off. They're East African neighbors.
Yeah.
What else stands out? I think that's basically it from my point of view.
Yeah. So there is also the U.S. military base.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
It's in Djibouti.
And they equally just elected the president for the 6th term.
For the 6th term.
Yeah.
6th term.
6th term.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah?
Hapa tukisema 2-term, 1-term, they were playing with 6 terms.
Yeah.
Okay.
One thing also that one would say Kenya is doing well in terms of media freedom, because in the country they do not have private media. Everything is state-owned. So when you talk about
the 6th term.
the 6th term, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So yesterday we were having a conversation with Barack Muluk, and he said, in terms of benchmarking, they would come benchmark here to just see how Kenya is doing it.
Yeah.
But that we need to equally just go back and understand where it came from, because civil society fought for that space. So then how then can civil society organizations, if there are in Djibouti, learn in terms of opening up the space, you know?
I beg to ask, do the civil societies equally pay allegiance to the government, you know?
That's the thing. Could be civil society organizations bankrolled by government, so that they just speak government language as well.
Okay.
You know, yeah. It's
Interesting.
open.
Yeah.
But let's go to the proverb, yeah? Uko tayari?
Hey. Seme nisiseme.
People are bones and blood. By diversity is beauty.
People are bones
And blood, but diversity is beauty.
Okay. Well, at the end of the day, irrespective of your color, your race,
Yep.
your creed, your allegiance, we all boil down to flesh and blood.
Yes.
And I think that's what puts us as humans. But if you go deeper into it, each and every person has their distinct personality, distinct feature. You can't say Aseto is the same as Jesse.
True.
The things that make you unique. And I think that what is sort of being communicated in that particular proverb. Yeah, we look at diversity, what makes us different, and whatever makes us different makes us special. I
Yes.
think that's how I look at it.
Yeah, you know, we have this bad thing in life pretty much in the world right now that there is racism that many go through. You know, there's just hate that is out there. But at the end of the day, if, let me give an example, if there is an accident somewhere and someone needs blood transfusion, they never really look at your skin, where you came from, no.
Yeah.
All we need at that point is blood. And if you can offer, you offer. So we all have we are all made of blood and bones, right? That is what makes us us. But our diversity, you come from Milima, I come from the lakeside, right? I'll come enjoy your coffee, you enjoy my fish. And that exactly is what makes us unique and special in our own unique way, you know.
Yeah, remember Martin Luther King Jr. Don't judge me by the color of my skin, but by the content of my character.
Umesikia hiyo? Piga mstari chini yake, right? So let's say hi to people out there. It will be interesting to see how our guests will be interpreting that as we proceed. In the meantime, let's just say hi to those who are listening to us. Remember that we are streaming live on standardmedia.co.ke, on our YouTube channels as well. We are live on X to millennials. That would be Twitter for you. We are as well on Instagram, on Facebook, everywhere, as well as on KTN. You're able to join us there. For those of us who are following it on KTN, tunasema karibuni sana. Joseph Okondo, good morning, Spice team, tuned in from Chuda in Mombasa, karibu sana. Kiaria Peter, good morning from Mombasa. Desire is the starting point of all achievement, not a hope, not a wish, but a keen pulsating desire which transcends everything. Carrier Peter, salute. I agree with you. You know, let's go to Macau Oliver. Kenya truly needs a renaissance. The minister in charge of fuel is headstrong. His subordinates are yet to be charged. The president is focused more on ODM-UDA pact. Fuel prices might increase today. What do you expect today?
Well, following Trump's move to blockade the Strait of Hormuz, I think it'll definitely have a ripple effect on the price of fuel. But we've had so much about the good tidings about this G2G deal and how it's cautioning Kenyans from this shocks, global shocks. Let's see when rubber meets the road if truly there'll be a price hike today, because Kenyans are anticipating a hike. I hope we'll be able to be shielded from erratic fuel prices, which definitely have a net effect on the cost of living in the country. So many households might be affected by the price increase.
True.
And as you rightly put it, EPRA, all eyes on EPRA today.
Yeah. I think it's also interesting because yesterday in that committee, the EPRA boss said there is fuel that has been ordered would be getting into the country. So let's wait and see, because as well, I remember we had a discussion with Martin Chombo from the petroleum sector, and he said that we have reserves all the way until the end of April. You know, so that would actually mean that in these fuel prices announcement that would happen today, we should not see a hike. But remember, we have the scandal. You know, we have the scandal that is there as well, and also fuel stations that are just hoarding. You know, businessmen who are hoarding fuel in anticipation of that change today. So let's wait and see how that will go.
Definitely.
Now, good morning, Spice FM. That is Tibbs Muge. Kisa Daniel. Good morning, Spice FM. Warega. Good morning. In it, live from Nyali, Mombasa. How is Mombasa? Nairobi is a little bit cold today. And Leo, hello, Aseto, and Osido. Today is Jesse. So, hello, Jesse.
Yes.
Hey, unasalamiwa hapa na Leo.
Okay.
And they're saying, there is a report of UN that police sent to Haiti committed war atrocities against Haitian. CS agent NIS know the hires, but unfortunately, you can't arrest yourself. themselves. So that is a sad situation that we saw, that some officers actually committed the acts in Haiti. Yeah. Eric Award, good morning, guys. Good morning to you. Eda Tatua, good morning. If parliamentary was functional, they would have impeached President Ruto on grounds of incapacity due to health and mental issues. Daktari tumekusikia, wewe ndo umesema. Margaret Enjoy, good morning. All at Spice FM Situation Room from Houston, Texas. It's good to be here. Let's continue the great conversation. Margaret Enjoy, it's good to have you here. We know the time in Texas right now that you're up and watching and listening to Situation Room. We say asante sana. Alex Gioko, good morning, Team Spice. Greetings from Kitale Mjini. Good morning to you. Baba Three Girls, good morning, Team Spice. Good morning to you. Wangi Juma, good morning, Spice FM. How are you all this blessed Tuesday? Mimi nasema niko poa. Jesse uko fiti?
Niko fiti.
And then he says hashtag must go. And Wanda, good morning from Toronto. Hi, Dennis, and welcome, Jesse. It's 11:10 p.m. here, but I can't keep without checking in with my favorite show. Wanda, asante sana and welcome here. Christina, good morning. I miss Mark Bichache on those chairs. May he get well sooner tomorrow. Yes, indeed. We wish him a quick recovery as well. Over the weekend, we saw that there is a commentary that he gave on one of our stories. So it's an indication that he's doing really, really well. Now, Rogers, Sabahiri, Team Spice, Aseto, in relation with veteran Bernard Otieno, I'm going to say it here. I met Bernard Otieno when he was working for, it was Spice TV, when he was working for KTN. We do not have any relations, but I am related to Ben Otieno, my late brother. So, so yes, there's a relation to Ben Otieno, Bernard, just not Bernard that you think about. Yeah.
Do you get that a lot, or is the first time?
Yeah,
Okay.
I actually get it a lot, but I actually met him once. We took a photo and he was like, you know what, we need to find out who Nanalicha Opiyo.
Looks can be deceiving.
Looks can be deceiving, yeah? Yeah, I agree. But no, we're not related to, I'm not related to him. Now, good morning, Dano, Nikofiti, Jesse. Looking forward to today's lineup. Someone tell the president to look at Hungarian election. Watu wakisema, wamesema. Viktor Orban. Over the, last week, US Vice President J.D. Vance was in Hungary to wish Viktor Orban the very best. And I remember that time we called President Trump, and Trump said, yes, Viktor Orban, I love it like that. But watu wakisema, wamesema?
Article 1, sovereign power of the people.
Yeah, belongs to the people. Yeah. Jennifer Taney, good morning. Aseto and Jesse, good morning, Spice team and family. Aseto, I can't wait for the Hungarian moment in Kenya. They won't believe. Tuko kadi. Aleki, is it only me who can't hear the audio? Can everyone else hear us? Tell us on the comments if you can hear us, because so far it's only you, but confirm that you can hear us, Aleki. And one question for you guys: do you still think Kenyan rates? Do you still believe Kenya rates highly for democracy in East Africa region? Given the news lately, it is looking very similar to your neighborhood. What do you think?
We've taken some hits. We have some misses, but compared to our neighbors, I think we're a little bit ahead. You put it right. Djibouti coming to the country to perhaps look at the space of democracy.
Yeah.
We have our issues, I won't lie, especially with the enforced disappearances, with the heavy-handedness of police, and at times the bloodlines between these three arms of government. So work in progress, but I believe we're way ahead of our neighbors.
I think we're way ahead of our neighbors, because you look at even exchange of power. In Kenya, it's peaceful. You look at our election process in terms of how we vote and everything. We can argue on the counting and everything else around it, but you going out there to vote, everyone knows what they need to do. So you just have a process in terms of the board is mandated to ensure the process is free, fair, them doing their jobs pretty much. And also the political class taking advantage of their office, breaking the law. All those things are issues. But in terms of ranking highly in the region, I think we're not doing pretty bad. I don't think we're doing pretty bad.
Yeah, though we can do better.
We can do better.
Definitely.
There's always room for improvement. Yeah. And Ken Korir, my leaders do not understand me, and I don't understand them. Am I the only one? Jesse, do you understand your leaders?
It's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Because they say our leaders are a reflection of the society.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're questioning yourself, ask yourself how these leaders actually got to power.
True.
You know what they say, bad leaders are chosen by good people who do not vote.
Do not vote here.
So make a difference. That's why there's civic education around picking your voter's card for the new voters. For those who are habitual voters, there's a change of mind, a change of narrative that's needed. So we no longer vote on the basis of ethnicity. It's issue-based politics.
Yeah.
Umefanya nini? Does your track record speak for itself? And I guess that's a way to go.
Yeah, and you've actually raised something that is very critical. Bad leaders are elected by good people who do not vote. We're talking about around 8 million who didn't show up last election.
Voter apathy is
Voter apathy is an issue. So then, if our leaders are a reflection of who we are, what have we learned? 2027 is here. What changes are we making? Are we the same people who will just line up to get 500 bob? Are we the same people who will get out there and have our ideas bought, not get out there and vote? So if we want change that we say we want to go Kadi, what are we doing with that Kadi?
We need to vote with our conscience at the end of the day.
you.
Because as you said, 8 million didn't vote.
Yeah.
The presidential winner got 7.1.
0.1.
So those who didn't vote could easily
Get their president.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah. Question for you. And this is Nyakundi Manuel. Morning, Tim Spice. Let me ask the amount of money the president is promising in Kisii. Is it in supplementary budget? We are also asking the same question.
Have you seen the rumors that the president has launched the same university in Kisii for a couple of times?
Yeah. Yeah, and you see, because that has actually been a conversation, especially within the political class, that the president has launched the same projects when he was deputy president, when he was president, he's launched the same project over and over again. So many are asking, okay, fine, you've been launching, when are we seeing implementation?
Yeah, heavy on optics, light on implementation.
Light on implementation, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what you're seeing. And Ken Korir, my leaders do not understand me. Yes. Evans Dande, good morning. Spice, good morning to you. Michael Angiyo. Nyakundi Manyo, those are just promises. Reality will hit later in the day after he has left one term. Hey, yeah. Wananchi. Talaka 100. Good morning from Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. How is Tanzania? Uko salama? Always looking forward to this channel. It's always an eye-opener. Karibu sana from Tanzania. Good morning, Spices. Let's get you informed. Kabisa. Michael Angio. Good morning, Asset. Jesse. Good to see Jesse Rogers. Mtua usiku sako. Yes, we salute. Jennifer Tenyi. We can hear you loud and clear. Asante sana, Christina. Natusikia. Young Jedi, loud and clear. You can hear us loud and clear as well, Benjamin. Ida Barak, good morning to see you. Happy to see you, Jesse. And good morning, Asato. Good morning to you. Ambassador Benja Zia from United Kingdom, London, Paddington, Karibu sana. And it's like Kenya is ahead of many of us. Freedom of press, freedom of expression, speaking truth to power, etc. And Joja Dimo, good morning. I am listening from Rongo. Habari ya Rongo. And Eunice Okelo, Oyaoreuru, Odiochengmaber. So pretty much, Sema is a good morning. And have a good day.
Thank you for the consideration.
Yes. And from there, we take a short commercial break. We look at the weather and traffic, and then we get into the newspaper review at exactly 31 minutes after 6 a.m. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room to start your day.
We should compare ourselves with the countries in regions we should be the best. So one would say, not say we are at least better, we should be the best. I agree with you. Room for improvement, but we should be the best. You agree?
Definitely.
Christina, we agree with you. Christina amejamle asubuhi. Yeah, but let's look at Kenya's bold newspaper. So this right here is what we have. And that headline, in our Piga Street, nasemaje, fooling Kenyans, playing clever. Now, nearly 2 weeks after the arrest of Mohammed Liban, Daniel Kipto, and Joe Sang, no charges have been filed, raising questions about the intent of the operation. As investigators fail to submit a file to prosecutors, the delays risk fueling suspicion that the spectacle was meant to project action rather than deliver accountability, even as the Energy Cabinet Secretary Opiyo Wandayi insists he will not resign. And those are images of President William Ruto on the left, and Mohammed Amin, the DCI boss, Renson Ngonga, DPP, and Opiyo Wandayi, Energy and Petroleum CS. To date, the Director of Public Prosecutions has yet to receive the inquiry file on the subject matter from the Directorate of Criminal Investigations. That is a statement from the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions. Jesse, care to comment?
Well, it's quite unfortunate that the country was fed drama. I think it was during the Easter weekend where these 3 top officials were arrested, they were booked, they were interrogated, and later released on police bond. But over 10 days later, we barely have an iota of accountability. Because speaking of accountability, stepping aside enough, I don't think so. At the end of the day, we definitely need to see prosecution. And when these authorities were arresting the said individuals, they must have had an idea of the collusion that happened in order to defraud Kenyans, as they said. So were we fed to the Kamata Fridays, and thereafter, we barely have a semblance of justice in terms of accountability. And mind you, President William Ruto has been quite vocal, saying that this is the administration that will firmly and decisively deal with cartels. Is this how we're dealing with them?
You know, it's interesting because you look at, by the time these individuals were being picked up, right? Kamata Friday. It is a fact that investigations had been done for them to know that these individuals had committed a crime, right?
Oh, they had an intent to
intended to commit a crime. Now, from there on, these individuals were picked up. They were taken to a DCI. They were grilled down for hours. Now one asks the question, 10 days later, and you're not seeing anyone being taken to court. We're not seeing any movement with regard to any semblance or sense of justice being given to the people of Kenya. Because at the center of it, remember, all these resources do not belong to the president. It is to the people of Kenya with whom an injustice has been committed. Now, DCI needs to tell us why this matter is taking so long, why the DPP does not have the prosecutorial file for him to open these, to take these people to court. One would say that kidogo, there is a problem, and that it's not just enough that the individuals who left office left, but even the cabinet secretary should have, because the buck stopped with them.
Definitely. Well, he says, see no evil, hear no evil. Just yesterday, he was summoned to appear before the National Assembly Energy Committee, and he firmly said, I will not resign, even as this investigation drags on. The Standard has quoted him saying, when it emerged that the consignment had come outside G2G, we moved swiftly because such a deviation would have required higher authority. I briefed the president on March 30th. He advised me to take the necessary steps to ensure one en route is stopped. But I'm pretty sure you saw those government letters.
Correspondent,
I mean, he was CC'd.
Yeah.
So when you say I wasn't in the know, this...
You're guilty by omission.
Oh, yeah.
Guilty by omission. You know, like the same way police would tell you, ignorance of the law is not an excuse.
It's no defense.
It's no defense, right? Yeah. So let's go to page 2. Rising terror financing concerns prompt a stricter PBO regulations, so public benefit organizations face heightened scrutiny amid terrorism financing fears, and the government introduces stricter regulations to enhance accountability, transparency, and sector oversight reforms. We also have a story on love triangle turns deadly as a man, 49 years, allegedly hacks lover to death. This is what I keep saying, man. Kama mpendani, walk. Unajua, ukiachwa, achika. If it's too hot, get out of the kitchen. Si lazima, by the way. Si lazima.
It's not worth your life.
It's not worth your life. So this man is going to spend time in jail simply because he couldn't walk away. Guys, it's never that serious. Kama imekata, walk away. It's better to walk away as a coward. That's what I keep saying. Where there is watu wanapigana, Jesse, me I'm a coward, me I walk away. You know, it only takes a moment of responding to realize that Allah, kumbe nilimpiga, akafanya nini? Akaenda.
Of course, even as we condemn gender-based violence. Yeah, irrespective of the gender.
Yes. Kimengich urges state action against political violence. So that is Bishop Dominic Kimengich and Eldoret National Polytechnic Chief Principal Charles Koech in the image there, calling for an action against political violence. What we saw in Kikuyu over the weekend was just sad. And also in all these political rallies that we see, as much as we know that these rallies are against the law, you know, we know what election laws stipulate with regards to campaigns. We know from the president, you guys have been breaking the law all this while. EACC were calling upon REBC, ODPP. You actually have citizens. You actually have candidates who are good enough to be taken to court without need of any files. Wamevunja tu sheria.
But how do we differentiate between meet the people tours or development tours, as they said, and the campaigns?
The moment I hear the president say, "Hawa watu tutakutana nao pale mbele 20," that's campaign for me.
So when people say one term,
it's campaign.
It's campaign.
When the president says, "Hawa tutapatana pale mbele nitawanyorosha proper," that's campaign. That's campaign. Because he's talking about an election that is to come, right?
But you know how they play smart with it. They'll put the development track record there. Hii barabara tunafungua, hii shule itasaidia wananchi.
The same thing he would say when he's campaigning.
Na wajinga walisha Kenya.
Wajinga walisha Kenya bana. Tunawaona sana. And the festival explores a heavy emotional burdens learners carry in school. So the mental health theme echoes in a mime titled Drowning on Dry Land by Salama School. And the burden of academic pressure is explored in Voyage Savage by the St. Monica Girls as well. Drama festival there, and there's also a lot that is being said with regard to the political class and government reining in on political messaging in drama and saying nope. There's a school here that had Singapore in their play, and they're told not to perform it. Yet we have CBE, competency-based education, and arts is a pathway in this education system. So on page 4 we have, "I will not resign," says Wandayi, as fuel import investigation drags on, and no day in court for fuel bosses as probe remains incomplete. One would hope that one of these fine days we see heads roll and individuals go to jail. Anxiety as Kenyans brace for new fuel prices today. I can tell you for a fact, I know someone who actually went for panic buying and has close to 150 liters stashed.
Oof.
Yeah. Mkipandisha mimi niko safe.
Yeah,
mafuta ikipotea mimi niko sawa.
So that's classic hoarding.
Classic hoarding. But now he kept on going for like 10 liters until he got his on 50.
Well, I hope he stored it safely, because
that's another thing. That's another thing as well.
Yeah. But it speaks to the reality.
Reality there is.
Because authorities are saying we have enough fuel stock to last us a couple of weeks. But the reality on the ground, I'm pretty sure you've seen the long lines, border borders, motorists characterizing various fuel pumps across the country. Is it artificial shortage because oil marketers are trying to cash in? Or do we truly have an issue in terms of fuel in the country? Because other African countries are equally feeling the pinch.
True.
Unfortunately, Africa seems to be on the receiving end wherever there are global uncertainties. Yeah.
I mean, the government, let's see how today goes. Because there's what the government says, there is what oil suppliers are saying, and there is what Mwananchi is experiencing. So you're telling us there's fuel. Petrol stations are saying they don't have fuel. Mwananchi can't go to work. Everything has been hiked. I remember someone was actually giving me the story yesterday that so he works for this company and usually buys fuel using a card, like the corporate card. So when he went to these one of the big petrol stations, and they were like, no, we no longer use card. So they want you to pay in cash so that they hike the amount, they give the owners their cut, and whatever else is excess is theirs to keep. So it's happening in these countries. We'll talk about corruption left, right, and center.
We've seen EPRA try and reining on these rogue fuel operators who are going beyond the agreed price of petrol in the country and fuel in general. Let's see if heads will roll.
Let's see if heads will roll. You want to look at the Daily Nation?
Definitely. They go big with the oil importation saga. The headline, I don't know, it wasn't me. The man at the center of the storm, Energy Cabinet Secretary Opiyo Wandayi, has deflected questions by members of parliament about the fuel scandal, insisting he was kept in the dark by his officers despite a flurry of correspondences, replying he couldn't tell why the 3 senior officials resigned and vowing not to step aside as investigations continue. Is it broad-based protection? You tell us. He's quoted saying the approval of the CS in the importation of this fuel was not sought. There's no reason to stop me from continuing to discharge my responsibilities as a cabinet secretary. Interesting. Despite the correspondences we saw where he was cc'd, he seemed to have been in the know, but definitely...
Just let me give you a story. My uncle lives in London and told me that there is this one time when lights just flickered, right? Just flickered. They didn't go off. It was not a power blackout. Just flickered. The individual who was in charge resigned. You know why? Because then the public will start asking difficult questions in terms of, okay, fine. What happened to that patient who was in ICU and it depends on that power? What happens to those who are driving and they depend on traffic lights to guide them? What happens to those who are using speed train and that power goes off, or that flickering just causes a major catastrophic accident? That individual, because knowing the kind of responses that would be demanded from him, what did they do? They resigned and left office. That is how serious people out here know that the buck stops with them.
The honorable thing to do would be to resign. But in Kenya...
Many expert.
Anyway, Opiyo Wandayi distanced himself from that particular fuel scandal. More details on page 4. We equally have issues to do with Treasury, which is in the race to end wastage in the backdrop of reports by the Auditor General and the Controller of Budget that keeps flagging stalled projects as a recurring problem. I think we'll get to canvass that a little bit later on with our guests as we take a look at the state of the economy. A little bit on politics, page 7. I'm not in your league. You cannot intimidate me, President Ruto has told the opposition as he continues with his charm offensive in the Gusii region. And he definitely went with bags of goodies for the region. It begs the question, is he trying to neutralize the Matiang'i effect in that particular area?
Yeah, I mean, why not? We saw him also the other day from Mount Kenya and then invite the Akorino to State House, trying to neutralize as well, one would say. Is in Nyanza, but specifically in Kisii, we know Fred Matiang'i is out there as the head runner as well, so trying to neutralize. But you see him now, he's too smart about it. I'm the president. I'm coming with goodies. You know, the other guy's just coming with talk.
Well, goodies, real or fake? Have they been budgeted for?
That's it.
Has the money been set aside?
These are questions Wananchi should be asking.
Yeah, definitely. Let's see how it all plays out. But at the end of the day, we're dealing with a shrewd politician who will definitely hit the ground running. And by the way, members of parliament justified the hike in travel expenditure in the office of the president and the deputy president, saying they need to go around the country. They were not voted for to stay at Harambee House and State House. They need to meet the people.
How did Kibaki do it?
Less talk, more action.
You're right.
Yeah.
You know, as well, I'm assuming, because President Kibaki allowed his cabinet secretaries to just do their job. You know, you want to launch a road that is connecting to, let me call them centers, two towns in a certain county. Send a cabinet secretary to go launch that. You know, you as the president, you're there in terms of policy and making sure that is implemented. I mean, you don't... I get perturbed when I see the president launch markets. Because first of all, I know that is a devolved function.
True.
County governments and governors should be doing that. So when I see the president launching markets, I ask myself, then what will governors do?
Okay, and perhaps we need to walk away from more promises and focus on actual implementation of these projects. Kusema na kutenda.
Yes,
definitely. Well, a lot more in the Daily Nation. Other stories, Ruto men face accusations of undermining ODM and the opposition. We'll get to talk about politics in just but a few, but the opposition says the fact that only their rallies are disrupted by goons points to government involvement. This issue about goons has been making headlines. Unfortunately, political violence is a reality in the current Kenya.
Yes.
And we definitely need to see the relevant authorities stamp the authority, even if some of them are implicated according to the opposition. Baby Pendo, 44 want charges against officers reinstated. Former DPP Nurdin Haji had preferred charges under the International Crimes Act against 12 senior officers. That's the latest in the corridors of justice. Yeah, that's basically it in terms of some of the major stories that have been covered in the Daily Nation.
Briefly, we got through the Business Daily and revealed a tax compliance certificate scandal. Hey, at Kerry. Hey, we never get a break, man. We never seem to be able to catch a break. And the Auditor General exposes irregular clearance permits. Sample shows 3,054 non-compliant taxpayers were cleared. So the Kenya Revenue Authority is under scrutiny after the latest official audit revealed it offered tax compliance certificates to thousands of workers and business people with billions of shillings in unpaid taxes, raising fresh concerns over enforcement gaps. That is scary. Billions lost. Hospitals, no medication, sure, not everyone's covered. You talk about education, no capitation. But here we're talking about billions being lost.
And
Kenya.
in the backdrop of Kerry missing its Q4 targets, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah. Kenya eyes a single gold export unit to curb smuggling. So Kenya plans to centralize its gold exports under a single agency as part of reforms aimed at curbing smuggling. I don't know how much Kenya produces a year from gold that we get from the artisanal miners. There's an individual here told us I think it's less than 5 kgs. But you look at the amount of gold that is moving through the country. It's crazy. You look at the scandals that you see of individuals who've been duped because of gold scam in the country, and it's really high. One asks the question, what are we not being told? What are we not being told? Just how much are we producing as a country? How much gold are we producing as a country annually? I think there is a lot more to that story than meets the eye.
Yeah, but every market has a madman, and we've seen the instances of fake gold and foreigners being swindled out of their hard-earned money. And it happens time and time again. I think just this month we had a case of an Australian, if I'm not wrong, who was swindled of over 70 million Kenya shillings, unauziwa padlock.
Exactly. Unauziwa tricycle.
Imbaya.
But you see that the reason why, you see even these individuals who are coming in and are being duped, right? I'm still asking the question, what do they know that we don't? Because these stories are out there. If you need to know how Kenya is doing in terms of gold, it's just a Google search and you'll see all these scams and scandals that happen in the country and would be enough for you to stay away. But you're still seeing more coming in and getting duped on a daily basis. But what is the number of clean gold that is passing through Kenya that we're not being told? Because these people being duped is just 1 or 2 stories that we hear. But how much is actually moving within the country? I don't think we're being told the truth.
Iko a lot more to dig into right there.
Regulator downplays competition rules threat to KQ bailout. So the Kenya Civil Aviation Authority has downplayed the threats of competition rules to government bailouts of Kenya Airways. So anyway, Isawa, even to Tuko, which story do you want us to look deeply into? in the next, say, 5 minutes?
Perhaps you can go with what's on the front page of the Star.
Okay.
Because they say, making Nairobi city great again, inside Ruto's makeover plan, which is pumping roughly 80 billion into the capital city to take a look at key sectors, including waste management, roads. We've heard from the governors and the members of county assembly who are touting this as a game changer. They're saying it's not a takeover, but it'll definitely have good tidings for the capital city. Look, it's not bad to pump money into the capital city because, of course, it has not just national but regional impetus. But at the end of the day, we need accountability just to make sure that money is not lost. Remember NMS? Governor Sakaja is on record saying that, this left Nairobi County in a financial hole. Back then, we saw the benefits, pavements being done, hospitals under the county being facilitated, the president launching them next to the general, who was the NMS leader at that time. But there were issues. And right now, we shouldn't repeat the same mistake.
True.
At least the capital needs a lot.
The capital needs a lot. And I agree with you. We're trying to make Nairobi great again. I agree. But we should ask ourselves difficult questions, especially when you talk about garbage collection. What is our plan around garbage collection? Do citizens of Nairobi understand their responsibility as well when it comes to disposal? Do landlords understand the responsibility on safe disposal and evacuation of the same to the Nairobi City County government or the individuals who have been contracted to do the same? If this information does not trickle down to Mwananchi, it will be very difficult for all these things to happen. We're talking about improving traffic. What is the plan around that? The other day I was just going home, and in a single route I saw different sets of matatus, right, that ply that route. And I ask myself, what is our policy as a country in terms of the kind of buses that ferry Wananchi from point A to point B? In terms of quality checks, where do they peak, where do they drop? Which is the holding station in terms of stages? Because Nairobi, you're told that this is supposed to be a drop-off and pick-up spot, but that is turned to be a holding center, which is a stage, and that causes traffic. What is our plan around all that? Because we know what we're supposed to do, we just don't do it. So in this route, we have a 70-seater matatu, we have a 33-seater matatu, we have a 14-seater matatu. There is another that is, I think, 8. They're very small ones. They are around 8-seater matatu. On the same route, there are tuk-tuks. Then you have border borders. And then you look at all those and you ask yourself, in this specific route that is less than 20 kilometers, which is policy that guides matatu operations in this specific route? High capacity buses has been touted for a very long time. Where are we headed with that? Are we doing electric? We do not have a policy when you talk about traffic. What is policy around garbage collection? What is policy around at the city ensuring that there is also proper sorting of garbage when you're throwing it, so that at the end of the day, when they're taking these things, it is easy and affordable for recycling to happen? It is not just about pumping 80 billion shillings. It's about having a plan on how you'll utilize that 80 billion shillings and get the most out of it.
Well, the president assured members of the county assembly in a historic address, the first of its kind, a couple of promises. In 6 months' time, phase 1 of Gikomba Market will be done. We are tarmacking 247 kilometers of roads will be constructed. He equally talked about 50,000 street lighting points, revival of 40,000 existing lights, installation of 10,000 new solar and smart street lights. I think we will hold the president to account come 2027. As he said, his development track record will speak for itself. So this is equally an issue that Kenyans, Nairobians will be interrogating to see benefit vis-a-vis the cost. The cost-benefit analysis. Yes.
Yeah, but I think even while at that, I think for me, I will take the president head on in the next 6 months.
Yeah.
That's where we start from, because we were also told before in the next 6 months, Camarine would be up and running in 6 months. Today,
Oh, no, you
it does. I just said
You
it.
just did.
Right?
Okay.
6 months, Camarine would be completed.
Yeah.
We're talking about years later. It has not been completed. So Nairobi, 6 months. We ask the president, why hasn't it been delivered? It's time for news. Leo Baga with the Newswire at exactly 7 a.m. Good morning.
The latest news from around. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.